Hey guys, welcome to Vanishing Gates. As always, I'm your host Jay, into this foray of strange, the weird, the paranormal, the bizarre, whatever else we want to talk about. As you guys will notice, I'm not in the studio tonight. I'm actually on vacation, shooting from my hotel room. I didn't want to leave you guys without a good episode tonight, so what we do have is a very, very special pre-recorded interview I did with the great Jim Harold. If you don't know who he is, you will after this episode. Great guy. Really good interview. As always, the show is brought to you by our friends at Dio Sandwiches in Eureka, California, 429 Grotto in Henderson Center. Check them out. Tell them Vanishing Gate sent you, and you'll get a discount off your order. Also, our buddy Jason Glenn Cotton Studios. Check him out on Facebook and ProPrismDesign.com for all your business card needs. So, guys, what I'm going to do here is I have the pre-recorded episode, but I'm airing it as live. So I will be in chat with you. So I will be here to answer any of your questions. Without further ado, here is our interview with the great Jim Harold. I'll be here in chat with you guys. Hey guys, our guest tonight is the host of the Paranormal podcast, the eponymous Jim Harold's Campfire, Jim Harold's Crime Scene, and the Great TV Podcast. His podcast has been downloaded over 31 million times. And he's in the top 2% of all downloaded podcasts. That is a huge deal, guys. Like, we have like 2 followers or something. I don't even know. He has written several Kindle Supernatural bestsellers and also holds a master's in applied communication theory and methodology. And he's accredited as a certified digital media consultant by the Radio Advertising Bureau. Guys, please welcome the great Jim Harold on to Vanishing Gates. Hi, Jim. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is all mine. So I started listening to your show a few years ago because I have been drenched in the paranormal, in the unexplained, pretty much my whole life. Whether it's the books my mom had as a kid, or encounters I had as a child, or situations like that. And I'm a big Halloween nut too. So I was trying to think of what could I do to get my voice out there, and to get other people's encounters and whatnot and experiences. And so stumbling across your show was awesome, because I listen as often as I can. I haven't done the Crime Scene yet and the Great TV because just time consumption.
Yeah, sure. I get it 100%.
So I got to ask, what sparked your interest in the unexplained? Because I know that you say you have a lifelong interest like I do. So what is there a moment that you can remember that sparked that flame?
I remember as a little kid being 2 things that I was really interested in. One, for some reason, now I think I'm quite a bit older than you. I'm pushing 50. Oh boy! But anyway, back in the 70s, I can't believe I'm saying that. I remember being in 1st grade and going to the school library, and they had this book about the Bermuda Triangle, and that was a real hot topic back then. And I'm like, wow, this is fascinating. And then I happened on a show called In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy.
Yes.
And that was it. I was hooked.
Sold right there.
Really, I mean, and then later years, Unsolved Mysteries, of course. Although they have a strong crime element in it, they started to delve into a lot of supernatural topics. And from there on out, I was hooked. And before I ever did this as a job, I was just really fascinated in it, just like you, and I wanted to figure out what was going on.
And I want to give you a little bit of a help here. You're not that much older than me, buddy. A little bit, but not a lot. Not a lot.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
It just
I'm 40. I'm 48, and I'm not going. Well, I guess I do want to go further. I don't want to stop.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be 35 next month. I might be 34, so we're not that far off. I'm a late bloomer, though. Because you're
a youngin'.
Yeah, but you started this in what, 2005?
Which would put me at about 35, right? There
yeah,
you go.
Right. There you go. So maybe I'm okay there. I'm not great with numbers. I'm good with talking, I guess. So, you've had this lifelong interest because of the shows. I remember, do you remember those Time Life books that they used to have, like the big volumes?
Absolutely. You were talking about your mom's books, and I'm wondering if he's talking about those Time Life books. And there was even you may not remember this, but they had the commercials with the fortune teller and the crystal ball.
I do.
Yeah.
And In Search Of.
I absolutely remember those and used to read them.
Yeah, my mom's books were more in depth. Those were my grandparents that they had. My grandmother was very religious, but she loved the books. I think she just liked to have books. And so I'd sit and read them. I don't think she ever looked into any of them. But my mother had a much broader selection, like most of Sylvia Browne's stuff, anything like that. She had Communion, all that stuff. So I got into stuff much more than just a Time Life way early on, including a lot of those Bermuda Triangle books. So we have a lot in common on that, I think.
Sounds like it, for sure.
So when did you decide on podcasting? How did that become the voice you wanted to choose for getting in touch with people about, your interest in the paranormal and the weird?
Well, it actually was kind of nice because I was able to kind of marry up two passions of mine. I had gone to school for broadcasting, and being in front of the mic, whether it was television, mainly television was mainly my training, my video.
Oh, wow.
And then I started working at a radio station when I first started out. And if anybody's ever worked in broadcasting, particularly in the old days, pre-internet, you were always told, hey, get a job at a radio or a TV station, doesn't matter if you're sweeping the floor. And I happened to be an assistant for the sales department. And then a sales opening came up, and I'm like, well, they get to write copy and they get to do cool stuff, so I'll just become a salesperson. So an ad salesperson, which I did, and for a number of years. And I looked up and I was 35, and I'm like, geez, my whole dream of broadcasting is kind of out the window, isn't it? But then I heard about this thing called podcasting, and I was listening to people like Leo Laporte, who is still going strong with his his Twitch network, and Adam Curry, who of course now is holding forth on No Agenda from MTV fame, and I listen to those guys, and I'm like, I can't compete with those. Then I listened to some of the people who were doing the shows out of their house. And this was 2005, so all of the equipment was very rudimentary. And I'm like, well, I can do as good as that, or as well as that. And so I said, well, I want a podcast, but what is something that I'm really fascinated by and would hold my interest that I would. And, well, politics, hey, I'm not going to I'm not going to add anything to the discussion. Music, you really can't do on a podcast. Sports, I'm not going to add anything. The paranormal, that's something like in fact, when I was starting to listen to podcasts in 2005, when they were very, very early, nobody knew what they were hardly. I kept looking for paranormal podcasts, and I couldn't find anything that scratched my itch. So I said, well, I'll just do the show myself. And that's how it started.
That's very similar to where I was at a year ago, or just over a year ago when I started. It was exactly that. I was so burnt out over the last election cycle and political talk, because it's everywhere. I was like, what can I talk about that's not really going to offend people? But I can,
that's an important point. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I will say this. I don't talk politics on my show. Now, if somebody says something, I'm not going to say, oh, you can't say that. Yeah. But, and I've gotten attacked from both sides. I've had people who have said, this person's great or this person's horrible on both sides, and somebody will say, you're nothing but a conservative, you're nothing but a liberal. But the thing is I let people talk. But the point is I stay away from politics as much as possible, because the topics that we cover in the paranormal, they have absolutely nothing to do with politics, and they impact everybody, whether you are far left, far right, in the middle,
absolutely,
Republican, Democrat, whatever. It impacts us all.
And that's exactly where I was. I was thinking, what can I talk about that people are passionate about, that everyone's had something to do with, that we can all come together, and instead of being just against each other, get along and have some cool, fun time. I mean, I've had some controversial topics on the show, and we're not as prim and proper as your show. Like, we're a little more offensive in our language.
Okay, that's all right.
We're not the show you're gonna watch it with your kids. I don't even let my children watch the show, and that's the first time I've mentioned having children on my show. But I do. I'm very proud of them. I just don't let them watch it because of some of the things we talk about. We cover true crime as well, and stuff like that. But we also, we don't always watch our tongue. But
that's okay. That's okay. As long as you're upfront with it. And it's not that in my private life, I will use a 4-letter word here and there, sometimes several of them strung together. But, but on the show, I just made, I made it as though this is something that you could put on a broadcast station. But that was just an editorial decision. It wasn't, well, it's bad to curse. I mean, there are plenty of things that I watch and listen to where there's cursing. It doesn't offend me. It's just I made that choice, and that was just like an editorial decision. It wasn't a judgment.
Yeah, no, it's a brilliant decision. The fact is, me and my brother and a buddy of mine, we all work in industries where, we just talk. So that was kind of our thing.
Right.
We didn't want to be so censored. We lose some of the audience, but we're a little more who we are. And I mean, you do an excellent job of being who you are on the show, I think. Because I've listened, and man, you are able to talk to people in a way that I don't think I can do. And it's a natural ability you have that I really admire.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. No problem. So how about encounters yourself? Have you ever had any encounters? I know there's one story you tell about a radio song that comes on, or song on the radio when you're driving.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most of the things that I've had have been very subtle. Some people say I saw a shadow figure and he was coming at me and those kind of things. I've had more kind of what are referred to as after-death communications. They're kind of subtle things.
Yeah.
One was the one you're talking about was coming home from and this is, 1999.
And if it's too personal, I don't want to go too far into it, because I don't have to do with your brother. So.
No, I could tell it quickly, and it's not too personal. I've told it about 1,000 times.
Okay.
But anyhow, what happened was my brother had died very young. He was 20, he was 27 when he passed. And would have been 28 later that year. And anyway, he was autistic, and he passed unexpectedly. And we were driving, my wife and I were driving back from the funeral. At that point, we'd been married like 3 years or something. And we were flipping through the stations, and I like all kinds of different music. And we happened on one of these stations that plays people like Sinatra and Dean Martin and those kind of people. So I like that stuff. So anyway, this instrumental comes on, and it's like, well, that sounds kind of familiar, but I can't place it. And I should mention that my brother liked all kinds of music as well. He liked everything from classic country music to, I don't know if you remember that old show Soul Train that used to be on television.
Oh, yeah.
Very popular in the 70s and 80s. He loved that show. He would listen to anything. But his favorite, strangely enough, was, and you probably know it from the SNL skits, Lawrence Welk. I don't know why. He loved Lawrence Welk.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, cut back to my car. We're listening to this instrumental, and it's like, boy, that sounds familiar, and I can't figure out what it is. And on the back announce, the DJ goes, of course, that was the big hit by Lawrence Welk and his orchestra, Calcutta, from 1960. And it's like, geez, what were the odds of that happening? I've never heard Lawrence Welk on the radio before or since.
I've never heard Lawrence Welk ever on the radio, so...
Hey, how weird is that? And I happened to be driving through this one part of the world at this particular time when we came, when you're driving, this was Southern Ohio, because I'm from the Cleveland area, so we're driving up 77 back up, and, stations come in, they go out. So what are chances I was listening to it at the exact time when they decided to play Lawrence Welk? And I don't know how this works. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It seems like it's a coincidence. But it was too much of a coincidence to be a coincidence. I'll tell you another one real quick.
Yeah.
This happened back in November. I was lucky enough to be asked to speak on a cruise, a paranormal cruise. So anyway, very nice ship. We had a day at sea. So that day we took several hours and we did presentations. It was me, Micah Hanks, Rosemary Ellen Guiley. Mm-hmm. Good guests, by the way.
Yes.
They are. Maybe you've spoken with them. I don't know.
No, but, not yet.
but they're great. But anyway, so anyway, we were doing our presentations, and the funny thing was, if you've ever been on a cruise ship and they have casinos, you have to go through the casino. They'll put it strategically, so you have to walk through it. And in this place, you had to walk from the conference room to go get coffee. You had to walk through the casino. And I was walking through the casino. And one of the attendees, one of our cruisers, who was in the seminar, he was playing one of those hook machines that hooks down and gets cash. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is my uncle, who had passed, and I was very, very close to, I thought of him very specifically because he used to like to play those when he came out of a store, and he'd like spend 10 or 15 bucks trying to win a 99-cent made in China trinket just to do it. But anyway, I had a very intense thought about him when I saw that. I'm like, oh man, he would love that, and it would be doubly good because he'd be trying to get money because he liked to play the lottery and stuff like that. So I knew he would love it. I'm like, boy, I wish he were here. I really wish he were here. So anyway, I didn't walk 2 steps, and this woman comes into the casino, and she's pretty close to the gentleman at the hook machine, our cruiser, and she yells out the name John, John, like she's calling her husband. My uncle, who I was extremely close to, who loved hook machines, who had passed. His name was, well, guess.
John.
His name was John. I don't know how this works, but I think it does.
There is definitely something that in the universe we don't understand. So to go back to the story, the story, I hate to call it a story, but to your encounter.
No, it's a story. It's okay.
It is, but I mean, the connotation nowadays comes off kind of funny, especially I've come across, well, oh, it's just a story a lot. Well, I mean, it's a story, but it's also something that happened to you. You experienced it. It's an encounter, maybe. Maybe it's just something you remember. But we've lost, I think, sight of what a story was supposed to be, with oral tradition being so important versus everything so immediate now. So I think the word story gets kind of like scraped under the rug. So what I wanted to say with your encounter with, what happened with you and the radio thing, for people that don't know, folks with autism, they cling to something very, very passionately. I haven't talked about it ever on the show. My oldest son has autism, and he absolutely clings to things, and that becomes part of his personality. And so I think that the universe, wherever your brother was floating around at, knew to talk to you, to comfort you a little bit. I think. I mean, that's just my thing. And knowing someone with autism close to me, it makes sense to me that's so. Not to,
I think the way I interpreted it was my brother was saying, "Don't worry about me. I'm okay."
That's kind of what I would get from that. But I wasn't trying to like kudos you on that one. It's just my thought. Not that I need to have a thought on your experience, but
No. The thing is that again, I would think it'd be more likely to be let's say we're at that time a Michael Jackson song, or something like that, something a little more contemporary.
Yeah.
Then it's if there's something's a top 40 hit and the person dies, and then you hear the top 40 hit.
Yeah.
If it's a JT song, if it's Justin Timberlake and you hear it and he liked Justin Timberlake, well, you turn on the radio, you always hear Justin Timberlake, but you don't hear Lawrence Welk. That's what got me.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like what I was thinking is like you hear people. I picked up a coin and had my dad's birthday on it, or the year he was born on his birthday. So it's my dad talking to me. I have a harder time with that versus in this situation, because I do think that. And this is just my theory, that your personality follows you into the nether, wherever we go. I think part of you is always there in the universe. So I mean,
I believe that. I believe that.
So I think yeah, I was just trying to say that I was hearing you tell the story when I was listening to the show, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally think like I feel like that's what's going on. So I don't get that very often. So
well, thank you, and that was. And the thing with the hook was just, and again, that could have been, a lot of people in the world named John, but that was really weird. And I mean, it was one of those things, sometimes something will happen and then a week later you'll think about it and it'll hit you. Then you're like, oh, that might have been, no, this was instant. The minute that woman said John, I'm like, oh my God. Here I am on a cruise talking about the afterlife and this kind of stuff. And oh my God, I can't believe that just happened right now.
And it's not like he was on your mind all day either. That's the
no,
other thing
not
too.
at all. I hadn't even thought about it until I saw the hook machine. It's like seeing, if your uncle passed and he was a baseball player and you saw, a baseball diamond, you might think of him. It was that kind of association, but
yeah.
He hadn't crossed my mind all day.
Well, you were busy. That was what, the Mystery Cruise? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Mysteries Cruise. That was a lot of fun, and that's what we did. We had that one day. I mean, we had a lot of sun. We had a lot of fun. We got to go to a cigar place where they make cigars, and I'm not even a cigar smoker, but I tried one out, and we went to a rum factory. We did a lot of
Ooh.
fun stuff. But on the one day we did have presentations, and it was really fun.
Yeah, no, that's all. I heard you advertise it a few times, and like one of these days, one of these days, you know. But you know, other things come up first, and I got to prioritize.
Of course.
So my next question, not to jump around too much, but I want to pick your brain a little bit. We have very little bit of time because I know you're going to be doing your show here right after we're done. So again, I'm really thankful you to be on the show and taking the time for this. Why do you think there's such a deep fascination with the supernatural and the unexplained? Because humans all seem to have this fascination with things we don't understand. So what do you think after the years of doing this and the years of being interested yourself?
Well, I think for one, we all wonder what's going to happen when we die. I think that's one of the big questions, and nobody really knows. Even if someone has great religious faith, and I don't begrudge that at all, they don't truly know what's going to happen. Scientists don't know what's going to happen. And what I often say in terms of these kind of topics, the afterlife is my favorite one because we might not all see Bigfoot, we might not all see a UFO, but I do have some news for everyone. We're all going to die. Yep. So I think that is what's going to happen after we die. And so it's, first of all, fascination with the unknown, but also, and I think this is the first time I've ever answered this question this way, and I've been asked many times, but I think that many of us, most of us probably, sense there's something else. It's kind of like, you know, when, in fact, Rupert Sheldrake, and I interviewed him on, had a book called The Sense of Being Stared At. You know, when you're sitting and you can just sense that someone's looking at you, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, I think in the same way, we as humans can sense there's something else that we don't understand, but we don't know what it is. But we sense that there is something else, or we're not seeing the full picture. For example, I was just watching a show on the Gaia Network about the theory that we're living in a computer simulation. And I posed the question on Facebook. I said, well, what if we're living in a quote, what we consider computer simulation, and God is the operator? You know, there's so many ways to take this stuff. And I don't know if you've had this experience. I bet you have. When I first started this back in 2005, the stone ages of podcasting, I had the feeling, you know, I'm going to do this 6 months. I'm going to talk to all these smart people about these topics, and I'm going to have it all figured out. I'm going to have the answers. I really kind of thought that. Well, let me tell you, I'm more confused than that.
Yeah, I mean, you and me both, man.
The more you get into it, the deeper it goes. So there's never an end. Now, it's fascinating talking about. I just literally, before the show started, I posted an interview I did with Dr. Raymond Moody. He's the man who invented the phrase near-death experience.
Yep.
So to get to talk to people like him about these things, also talking to people like me who have just had strange experiences, it's really an honor, and it's fascinating. It's like, I don't know if we'll ever get any answers, but it's sure interesting discussing the possibilities.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, like hit it right on the head. That's, you know, I was actually just talking to someone 2 days ago about the idea of a simulation. And I had the same question. What if there's actually God pulling the strings? And he was like, yeah, you know, it's a legitimate argument. So, there's so much out there, and I think there's something, again, deep-seated. Like you said, that we sense something outside of ourselves. You know, and you talked about, like, the knowing someone's looking at you kind of thing. Well, it happens when you're driving, too. Sometimes you'll notice, because I drive a lot for my regular job, because I still have to have one of those. And I'll notice people just staring at me, and suddenly I'll just look over, and they'll look away real quick. I'm not doing anything crazy. Well, I do live in Northern California, and I abide by the traffic laws and use my turn signals, so maybe that's why I'm weird. But this is a strange place. No, but that's such an awesome answer there. Now, are there any specific topics that you just cannot take seriously? Like, have you ever, like, I'm not going to say what it is, but there's one topic that I have a real hard time with, and the only reason I'm not saying what it is because there's a specific person that's been in the news that I'm trying to get on the show, and I really don't want to offend, and I want to have their point of view before I bring them on.
If you would ask me the thing that I'm least convinced about, now I don't write it off, because I think it's interesting, but probably Bigfoot is the thing that I'm probably most skeptical about. Now, that means that I'm kind of thinking no, but I am not closing the door. Because I do believe there are strange creatures, particularly in the sea, that we just haven't discovered yet. I mean, scientists are discovering strange creatures in the ocean all the time. So, on one hand, I think it's very possible that there are cryptid creatures that we haven't figured out yet. But B, I just come back to the question, and many times I've gotten various answers on this. Why haven't we found a body? Why haven't we found remains? Some people say it's because Sasquatch is an interdimensional traveler of some type. I have a little bit of a hard time with that. Yeah. Other people say, well, you don't regularly find the carcasses of deer either, for example, because, nature takes care of it, so to speak. But to me, the fact that we haven't found any hard proof makes it somewhat... it makes me less likely to believe. So maybe I put it where, life after death, I'm like in the 98%, 99% camp. Ghosts, I'm in the 90s. UFOs, I'm in the 90s. Probably Bigfoot, I'm in the 20s. Yeah. So I'm not shutting the door, but I'm a little more skeptical of that idea.
So, like, I live in Northern California. I live an hour or an hour and a half from where Patterson-Gimlin, that footage was taken or made, whatever you want to say either way about it. I've been in the woods a lot. I've never seen any kind of evidence of Sasquatch myself. I mean, really been up there. I've been to Bluff Creek where that footage was taken and can't see anything. I've actually found a carcass of a cougar, which you're not supposed to find ever. I found deer carcasses. So I know that's not really a thing. I'm kind of in the camp where I want Sasquatch to be real, but I think it's more of a, carried over tradition from Gigantopithecus. It's kind of more my leaning, when it comes to Bigfoot. So not to be a downer to my friends in Northern California.
But I'm not closing the door.
No,
because,
absolutely.
Things are possible. And, for example, on my campfire show where people call in with their stories, I would say 90+% are absolutely sincere. Very rarely have I heard somebody who I didn't think was playing it straight with me. In a couple of those cases, I just didn't air it where I thought they were trying to pull a joke or some things. But for the most part, I think people are very sincere and they believe that they've seen something. Does that mean that it's necessarily paranormal? In some cases, I believe it probably is. In some cases, I think they may be mistaken, but I do think they are sincere.
Yeah, sincerity. And there's a big argument about your personal truth. Like, pareidolia seems to come into play a lot, I think, with a lot of things. So, like, your eyes and your brain aren't reading together what you're actually seeing in certain circumstances. So, who's to say, though? I mean, I've heard people out here who are absolutely definitive, no, Sasquatch is real. And these are people that don't believe in anything else. Aside from, and they wouldn't talk to you about anything paranormal or weird. Don't believe in aliens, don't believe in God, don't believe in nothing. They believe in animals, and they hunt, and they're like, oh no, Sasquatch is a thing. And they'll look you dead in the eye and tell you. So it's a sincerity there that I think is important. So even if it's not real in real life, it doesn't mean we should negate it, the reality in their mind, and just shut them out because they saw something. A lot of the times, I think. I could be wrong. I'm just
There you go.
So, okay, so on your show, you talk about head scratchers a lot. There's this really, really hard to categorize and define stories. Do you have a favorite head scratcher that you've had over the years that you can remember? Like, is there one that comes to mind that you just...
Yeah, there is one. It's the Roadhouse Saloon. Have you heard that one?
With the painting?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Can you?
Yes, I can recount it. It's a little long, but I'll kind of speed along here.
Okay.
Basically, the concept is this. One of my listeners was living, I think, up in Wisconsin, I believe it was. And her and a male friend had gone to see a band, and they closed the place down, and they were talking to the band, and it was after 2 o'clock in the morning, and they had about an hour to go back to home. And they were driving. It was rural area. Everything's closed. And all of a sudden, my listener, who is a woman, she said, "I've got to go." Tells her name was T.I. and her friend's name was Bob. And she said, "I've got to go to the bathroom." And he said, "Well, I could always pull over." And she said, "No, just drive fast." So anyway, they go a ways down the road. And like an oasis, there is this roadhouse, this bar at the side of the road, and it's all lit up. And they're like, "Well, that shouldn't be. The bar should be closed by now. The place was hopping. There were cars. There were neon lights. There were, you could tell the place was open." So anyway, they don't look a gift horse in the mouth. They go ahead in. Anyhow, basically what they ended up doing is they got a couple drinks. She went to the restroom. They came back. But everybody acted kind of strange. This one guy was playing some music on the jukebox. I think it was Let's Twist Again by Chubby Checker. It was one of those vinyl jukeboxes, not the newfangled ones, but with actual records. And he came and asked T.I. to dance, and she said, "No, I'm not really interested." And she had a cane, so she pointed to her cane. And he kind of smiled, and he had these nasty teeth, she said, and she said, "I'm glad I could get out of that one." And people just kind of smiled at him and looked kind of weird. They didn't really engage. So anyway, T.I. and Bob were talking. They said that Bob said he's really glad they came because there was this mural of an Old West scene on the wall that he'd heard about, and he always wanted to see it in this place. So they were looking at it, and they noticed that, like, everybody that was, and by the way, this place really exists. Somebody posted it in my Campfire Facebook group. It really exists.
Oh, I missed that part. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know it at that time when we recorded that, but it does exist. People have found it and taken pictures.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, there was this big mural on the wall, but the people that were in the mural were actually the same people that were in the bar. Like the bartender was the same guy, just dressed in Old West stuff, and there were a couple women at the end of the bar, and they were the same people. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird, but maybe it's just a case where these are like regulars, and whoever painted it, did it as a homage to them. So anyway, so that's that piece. They started looking at it, and they noticed in the door period where they had swinging doors, like in the Old West, in the old Western shows, they have the swinging doors and so on.
Yeah.
There were like two figures, but they were kind of misty. And they kept watching it. And if you remember the old Polaroids, the two figures started to develop into the picture. And they became more and more solid and more solid. And then he noticed one was a taller man and the other one was a shorter woman. And then they noticed the woman had boots. T.I. had boots. And then they noticed the woman had a cane. T.I. had a cane. They were literally watching themselves develop into the picture. They looked at each other and said, "Perhaps we should get out of here." And they bolted out. And as they're going out, the people are waving back like, "Come back, come back." And they close the door of the bar. And when they come out, they can't believe what they see. Everything is stone cold dead, including the bar itself. There are no cars other than theirs in the parking lot. It's not even the best part yet. So anyway, they leave. And T.I. is a lot braver than I am. A couple days later, she goes back with a friend. She doesn't wait until 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was, but a little earlier. And she comes in and she looks around. She sees a jukebox. She goes and looks for Chubby Checker's Let's Twist Again. Song's not on there. Oh, by the way, it plays CDs. It doesn't play vinyl. So she goes up to the bar, and there's a female bartender. And she's like, oh, we were just here a couple nights ago. Where's that big, good-looking man of a bartender yet? I don't know who that be. Yeah, he was a young guy. No. We don't have anybody like that. The only 2 bartenders that are here are me and my elderly father. And then, I don't know how long she stayed, but she eventually left. Now, I don't know what the explanation for that is, but that is the definition of a head scratcher.
I seem to recall the bar folks didn't really want them to leave. That would have creeped me out even further. But that was, I remember that story. That was, I was sitting there. I was actually at work pouring out expired beer going, whoa. That was awesome. So
yeah, I love that story.
You must have had so many good ones over the years, man. Like, we've had a couple that are really cool, and we've had some really cool guests on the show. We did have one that said that Bigfoot was like the Predator, and he could camouflage himself over the highway. So I don't know about that. It was nice that they offered that story up. So, why'd you start a true crime show as well? Like, what brought you into that realm?
Well, I think that it occurs to me, it goes back to the unsolved mysteries thing. People who are interested in the supernatural. Also, if you listen to things like Coast to Coast, I think it's like a Venn diagram. It's not a one-to-one overlay, but I think a lot of people who are interested in spooky, mysterious things are also interested in true crime. Things like serial killers and things like that.
Do you think it's just
so that was kind of my inspiration?
You think it's just the pull to the macabre in general? Like, I'm a big horror movie buff.
It could be, or the fear of the unknown again.
Yeah. I think that works too, and I think part of it's trying to figure out who we are, maybe, where the criminals, just people that commit heinous acts, they're really interesting because I think you're trying to figure out why you're not like them, not why they do what they do, but why you're not like them.
Well, that's an excellent point, because some of the things, it's very disturbing in how people could do these things to other human beings, particularly, kids, and I don't get it. There's got to be something different, and I'm taking a pretty hard line on crime, but there's got to be something wrong with these people to do this kind of thing, because it's one thing, let's say 2 guys get into a fight and they're upset about something, and one hits the other and they accidentally fall into you've seen the stories where the guy hits the guy and he didn't mean it, but he falls down and hits his head on a table. I mean, you could see that kind of thing happening. You could see where, if you got angry enough and got in a fight, but to kill 10 people and cook their flesh and eat it.
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole nother level. So I think it is just trying to figure out why in the world these people do these things.
Yeah, like we did a show about Joe Metheny, if you know who that is. And that is
I heard the name,
yeah, he was the guy that had the barbecue stand, and that was, we did a whole show on like cannibals and whatnot. I just no, I don't get it, but I want to understand why I'm different, because it just, I don't know, like what makes some people tick one way and what triggers something, because a lot of people that commit heinous acts, or some of them are some of them, not all of them, some are relatively normal until something happens, and then they snap. So it's like, why haven't I done that? Why don't I do that? For me, I don't know. How long have you done the Crime Scene podcast for?
Actually, I also have a Plus Club that people can join, but I never promote that to new people. I want them to listen to the free stuff, and there's a ton of free stuff. And I've been doing a Crime Scene since 2011, but not weekly. I think there's 120 episodes or something like that. I'll have to double check here and see how many there are. But anyway, the thing was is that I had 142 episodes actually. I had posted most of those in my Plus Club, and then last year I decided to start posting them, the most recent episodes, for free. And I thought, oh, this is great, because now everybody's going to say, well, Jim just started podcasting on true crime because it's popular all of a sudden, but I've been doing it since 2011.
Yeah, you're in no way a new guy to the scene.
No, not at all. I'm the opposite of new. I'm old.
So, like, I'm hesitant for myself to do, and you were saying you have less true crime stuff. I'm hesitant because I want the facts, especially, when things are going on, or, I don't want to have misinformation with a crime. I want to have the facts pointed out.
Right.
I don't want a lot of crap where it's, speculating. Lamb, that tragedy.
Right. Yeah, that is a really strange story.
Yeah, I don't care what BuzzFeed says. You can read the police reports. It's very tragic. And so, I mean, we came to a conclusion on that one, but I can't do that with every show. It's heartbreaking, but there's a lot of things I want to cover. Like, we had a local missing girl that I was actually going to start a separate podcast about this year, and I decided to hold off because I want as much information that's accurate as I can get before I go in, because she's been missing since I was a kid. And I don't want to give the wrong information out and get people, speculating all over the place. It's not going to do anyone any good. It's not going to find someone. It's not going to help if we just speculate endlessly on something that's, crime related or missing persons related, That's my...
Right. I think that makes sense. We had a situation up here in Cleveland. I don't know if you know the case, but where, I'm not going to say a gentleman, a man, or a monster by the name of Ariel Castro held 3 women.
Well aware of Ariel Castro.
And the sad thing was, and that's kind of crosses over into the supernatural world. There had been a psychic on Montel Williams who told this one girl's mother that she was dead. Well, these girls were missing for something like 10 years. In the interim, this woman's mom died. So she died thinking her daughter was dead, and maybe partially because the psychic told her on national TV, your daughter's dead. So I think you got to be really careful with that stuff. We do a lot of historic cases, but we try to be responsible about it and do it in a respectable way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, because that's why I try to be with it. Like, there's so many cases I want to cover. I'm just like, I just don't feel comfortable doing that because I need more information. It's not like the Unexplained where I can just throw a theory out there because no one really knows. But someone's life is actually on the line. I can't, and I can't just throw guilt at someone who's innocent. There's solved cases I don't mind covering a little bit, but at the same time, it's very difficult. We talked about the gal in, New Orleans, who had her, she was a torturess, basically, and she was written bad on the media in certain ways, and there was all sorts of stuff, and she was terrible, but we didn't go into the quote glamorous part. It's not glamorous, but the insults and the debauchery that comes up, and the hate and the vitriol from popcorn media that just pops up and says, oh, we're going to cause a scene because we want to sell papers. But pardon me, that was weird.
Are you still there? I lost you.
Yeah, sorry, my phone just rang and I had to hang up.
No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
But there was a lot of things in the media that weren't true at the time in the newspapers about how she treated people. She was terrible, by the way. They were terrible people. They did terrible things to their slaves, and that was bad. There's no okay for there, but they made it bigger than it should be, and I didn't think it needed to be bigger, so we talked about the truth about it. Like, there was things that were said that weren't true, but it doesn't negate the fact that it was horrible what happened. So that's how I approach the true crime part of it. Is like, a crime, if you hate someone, if you hurt someone, there's an amount of terribleness already there. Why would we make more of it to sell stuff? I just can't do that myself. So And I feel like you're the same way on that. That's why I appreciate you so much sometimes.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, we have a lot of mind meld going on here, I'm seeing tonight.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I know we're getting close on time because you got to do your show tonight. And I really appreciate you being here and taking the time. But I want to move on to another question. Is there a future project you would just love to do but haven't had the opportunity to cover yet or do yet?
Well, I have one. I don't want to give the specifics of it because I don't want to, not you, but I don't want somebody else to hear it. But there's some video stuff I'd like to do.
Okay.
I think, first of all, I want to get in a little better shape. I'm working on that now. But since I went to school for video, and I think I can do it, that's the one area. I mean, I'm very happy with what I've done in audio, and I want to continue. I also want to do audio books of my campfire books. There's just so many hours in a day, though, but people have asked for it, which I kind of thought, that's strange because they're books of stories from an audio podcast, but you want an audio book of it. But people say, yeah, that's what they want. So I've got to do at least one of them and see how it's received. But I definitely want to do more video. And the thing is that I used to hope, maybe one of these cable channels or something will call me up. But now the more I think about it, I don't want or need them.
You don't want to be restrained by their rules and regulations. Like, you want to have control of what you do. You've had it so long, you know.
It's funny because on several occasions I've been contacted to work with larger media organizations. Nothing that was really what I thought a great opportunity. But they're always kind of like, well, you tie up all your rights and we kind of tell you what to do and blah, blah, blah. Well, how much am I getting for it? Well, that's an open question. It's like, no. Yeah. So I love being an independent producer. I hope, a lot of big money's getting into podcasting these days. I hope that the environment continues where independent creators can continue to do their own thing, because I think that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I totally see that. I was thinking about it one day. I'm like, would I, if for some reason my ridiculous idea here, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm flying by the seat of my shorts here. I have the most makeshift studio, and I went from doing like 12 episodes of just audio to going, hey, I have a camera. Why don't we just do this? And having a video podcast thing. And now I got to figure out how to break up the audio to put on podcast sites and whatnot to try to make it work. So why would I want anyone else coming in and telling me how to do it? I don't mind, like advice from people if they want to give it, but at the same time, it would remove some of who I am from what I do. And that's the exact opposite of why I'm pursuing this. This whole idea of the unexplained and what I don't understand. To me, it sounds the same to you, but I think. And by the way, you got this picture you got on the show here. You got this Christopher Walken thing, but a much younger look. So you should keep rocking that. Don't worry about how you look, buddy. You look like a somehow more handsome Christopher Walken.
Hey, there you go. There you go. Only slightly less weird.
There's nothing wrong with weird.
Although much poorer, I should say that.
But can you dance? Because that guy can rip up the floor.
Yeah, he's got me there for sure. That and the bank account, for sure.
Oh yeah, those two things would crush us every time. Is there anyone you haven't gotten to interview yet, but you really wish you could? Like, is there someone out there?
I would like that. That's easy. Art Bell.
That would be awesome.
Because I'll even say this. I had put an idea, something I'm going to do, and somebody said, well, I already do that. And it's like, well, first of all, A, I didn't know you did that, and I'm sorry. And B, there's like 6 ideas in the world. We just keep redoing them. And everybody who has done any kind of paranormal podcast, essentially it's a radio show. And to me, Art Bell is to paranormal talk what Johnny Carson was to talk shows.
Absolutely.
And anybody that does a talk show is doing a different version of the Johnny Carson show. And to some extent, everybody that does a show like this is doing a different version of the Art Bell program. And it's not to say that we shouldn't. Of course we should. I mean, I don't think there should stop being paranormal talk because Art Bell retired. But I think that the man deserves a lot of homage. I know people criticize him. Well, he retired and he came back, and he retired and he came back, and he retired again. Well, that's neither here nor there. The guy really invented the genre. Of course, if you're a broadcasting geek like me, you know that Long John Nebel in the '60s did some of this stuff at WWOR in New York. But really, the guy who brought it to the fore was Art Bell, and he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Absolutely. Like, Coast to Coast AM was my thing for a long, long time. And that's what I think most of us, once we turned that radio dial on late at night, we heard that. And Art Bell was such an influence to this medium, I think. It was just, it would make no sense not to want him on the show. You know?
Yeah, that would be my guy. Now, I've spoken to George Norrie, who's been a real gentleman to me. I've been on his shows multiple times. I've been on his Gaia television show. I've met him in person a couple of times. Just a real gentleman to me, and hopefully I hope to be on there again this year when my next book comes out. And a great guy, and he does a great job. So it's no disrespect to him. Just
sorry, cut off.
Who used to be a guest host there who's terrific. But I would really like to art, but I don't know that it's in the cards.
Well, I mean, time will tell. Stranger things have happened.
Yes, indeed.
For instance, I have the great Jim Harold on my show. So yeah, no, stranger things have happened, buddy. So don't sell yourself short. So I know you got to go here pretty soon. Let's wrap up real quick, and I hate to cut it short because this is one of the best conversations I've ever had. Where can the folks at home find you, your show, and your books and whatnot? How can they get a hold of you? How can they enjoy it?
Well, wherever they're listening to your podcast, I'm sure they can listen to mine on any of the apps. Apple Podcast, I'm on Spotify, I'm on iHeartRadio, Google Play, Overcast, all the various apps. You can find us there. Also, my website is jimharold.com. That's JIMHAROLD.com. And you can find there are 5 campfire books and actually a grown-up coloring book for the campfire. I used to say adult coloring book, and people would get the wrong idea. And I've created a page where you have links to all of those. You can go to jimharoldbooks.com, and that basically will take you to a page where you can get all the Amazon links. You can look them up directly at Amazon as well, but if you want one handy-dandy URL for all the books, jimharoldbooks.com. And what's cool about the books, I mean, they're like 250-page books, but on Kindle, if you're on Kindle Unlimited, you can read them for free.
Nice. That is awesome. Hey, I would be remiss if I didn't say, hey guys, if you haven't checked out the Campfire Facebook page, you should absolutely check it out.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's one of my big things. I can't believe I forgot that.
It's super funny because I thought I had signed up for it like a year and a half ago, but I realized it was on my other Facebook page and not my show Facebook page, because I have 2. I have my personal one, and I have the one I made for the show as a host. So I just signed up today for it.
Oh, good. Well, let me tell you, we have, let's see how many it is now. It's over, I think, over 14,000 members now. And everybody just tells their ghost stories. And an easy way to get to it, I tend to do this. You can go to virtualcampfiregroup.com. That's virtualcampfiregroup.com. And they'll take you right to the Facebook page. And you just request entry, and we look over your account just to make sure you're a real person, which I'm sure you are out there listening. And we let you in, and it's everybody's really supportive. It's not a lot of sniping, not a lot of spamming. We keep a pretty tight rein on the group to discourage that. If we find somebody that's being nasty to people, we kick them out. If we find somebody that's posting Ray-Ban ads, we kick them out. So as much as you can, moderate a group like this is moderated. So people seem to love it. And it's great because, at this point, it's not all about me. It's a community of, about 14,000 people who have said, we think there's value in these stories. And by the way, here's one that I had. So it's kind of like I think it's great because you get your campfire every Thursday, and then in the middle of the week when you kind of need a little snack, you can go over to the virtual campfire group and read some great stories.
Yeah, it's an awesome community. Like I said, I signed up on my other page and just realized today on my normal one for the show I hadn't signed up yet, and so it popped up. And I did see your Twitter post earlier about the interview you did. So with Moody, that's pretty awesome. Jim,
yeah, he was a great guy.
I know you got to go here. You got like 10 minutes before your show goes. And I appreciate you wholeheartedly for being on the show. I cannot say how much of an honor it is to have you on.
Well, it's an honor to be here. I thank you very much. It's always great to meet and talk to new people, and it's a pleasure to talk to you and everybody out there. And I thank you again, and stay spooky, as we say.
As you say. Anytime you want to be on the show, Jim, you got an open card.
Excellent. I will take you up on it.
All right, I hope so, buddy. Thank you very much, and have a great night, and be safe, and get some rest. Well, have a good show.
Will do.
All right, bye, buddy. Guys, that was the great Jim Harold. Don't forget to check him out at all of his stuff. You have plenty of resources to find Jim Harold that was listed there. Paranormal Podcast, Jim Harold's Crime Scene, all of that. Jim Harold's Campfire. And check him on the Facebook page. Check out Jim Harold's Campfire Facebook page. Join that. You know, it'd be awesome because he's a great guy. It was cool to have him on the show. When you guys see this, I will be on the road. I will not be in the studio, but you'll know that by the time I said this because I'll do an intro prior. Anyway, guys, have a great night. I am Jay on behest of Jack and Paco, who aren't here because it's, you know, a weird day for us. Thanks for watching. Have a great night and be safe. And as Jack says, bye, everybody. I think he says it different. I think he says it more like a floating fairy folk thing. Thanks, guys.